Okay.
Okay, call the meeting back to order, and in the closed session, the city council discussed attorney-client privilege items related to the action filed by Housing First Minnesota, and staff was provided direction. So, did we get an answer on, we're moving to?
If Mayor and Council, if you're comfortable, we do have one staff person here for night to night, which is item 10D. If you're comfortable hitting that one next, if that's okay.
That works for me.
Yep, I'll move to move that up.
I second.
Oh, that's right.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. We'll just give her a minute.
Come on up.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name is Jessica, for those of you who might not know, but I did see most of you at Night to Night, which is actually why I'm here. Sergeant Eckenberg was supposed to join me, but unfortunately something came up, so he had to tend to some family stuff, so he is not here, so you get me. We just wanted to thank you guys for coming and participating. It's a really important thing that we love to provide to the community. As you guys are aware, we unfortunately couldn't have the city party out at Public Works this year. Between COVID and planning, it was just a lot. So we did have 12 neighborhood parties, which was very exciting. So we got a lot of pictures and a lot of positive feedback. Everyone seemed to enjoy themselves, so that was really rewarding. They were really glad that you guys were there.
Yeah, I'm
All
sure
right,
they
well,
couldn't, I'm sure they're so happy.
No, they are, because it gives them a chance to tell their feedback to you guys, and they appreciate you guys listening. They get far more excited about you guys than, me. But so thank you for coming. We also wanted to take the time to thank all the people who donated. We had a lot of community businesses that provided either monetary donations or in kind. So that helps with the prizes that we hand out, so that these neighborhood parties can provide the best experience for their neighbors. So, and then we also wanted to thank the neighborhood party hosts, because without them, we couldn't do it. Because as much as I'd love to host 12 neighborhood parties, I absolutely cannot. So, thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you to staff for all the hard work with that, because that was impressive, and it was a lot, I know, so.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you for me too. I got to meet a neighbor. I actually have neighbors, and I met one of them, and it was nice.
That's the whole point.
Yes.
It was a tremendous logistical triumph to organize two convoys of a variety of people of differing navigation skills and having them all arrive
my
more or
God.
less intact. So
Intact at one time, if I could
Yeah,
speak to
that's
my
true.
convoy. I don't know about Pete's. I guess I wasn't there for his, but I can say ours was pretty good.
and my two girls really enjoyed handing out candy and doing the cotton candy thing, and it was a great experience for us as attendees and participants, and I think the residents that I spoke to all really appreciated all the effort that went into it too. So thank you for all the hard work, and thank you to all the donors who made it possible too.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you as well, too. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there. I was out of town. But there was a neighborhood party right in front of my house, and I heard how great it was and how that we had, fire and police and a plow truck and city administrator was there. My neighbor was
The B
mentioning
team
that.
wasn't too bad to, what were they?
John and I were on the
We're on
A
the,
team.
we're on the A team, but that's
I
okay.
think we were group one.
Thank you very much.
Last I checked, I was group 1, the A team, but no, thank you guys. We really appreciate it. We couldn't do it without your guys' support. So
Thank you.
Nice job.
thank you.
Well done.
All right, and we do need a resolution
Correct.
for that. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve
How long,
resolution.
how long is the list of donators? Could we please read them?
Absolutely. Let's see, not too long. So thank you to Corcoran Crossroads, easy for me to say, Corcoran Lions, Culver's, DiMaggio's Pizza, Farmers State Bank of Hamel, Hassan Sand and Gravel, Hometown Pizza, Jersey Mike's, Medina Entertainment Center, the Northwest Area JC's, Phil's Quality, Automotive, ProTech Automotive, Rosati Pizza, Shamrock, Golf Course, Target in Medina, Tom Thumb, Westside Tire, and Wild Orchid.
Fantastic.
So moved. Is it moved?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, so now we are back to 8B, CAIN Road vacation.
Correct, and Natalie is on the call, and she's going to be presenting virtually.
Sounds good.
Natalie?
Can I make a motion?
We have a public hearing.
Yeah.
So,
Natalie, do you have, can you hear us? We can't hear you.
I tell you what, just in the sake of time here, I'll play Natalie for a bit, if that's okay.
Sounds
We'll
good.
just move forward and we'll follow up with technology here. So we do have the request to vacate a portion of the CAIN Road right-of-way adjacent to the property shown on the image there, 2070 70th Avenue North. This is the image here, essentially where the right-of-way that does exist to be vacated. This is the existing, I believe, drainage and utility easement. And this would be the newly proposed drainage utility easement that would be on the edge of the new lot line that just shifts over where the right-of-way is currently today. This is another image showing the layout with the road being vacated. There is an access or a question from the neighbor to the east. It's the Brolin family. They currently have an existing access off of the cul-de-sac that comes in properly through the right-of-way that exists or would still exist too, and then it bends to the north through what would be vacated right-of-way to the applicant. And Mr. Brolin had asked for essentially a carve-out of this notch here, so this current access point would remain. I was out there personally. I walked it to about the point about right there. It's really unimproved. It certainly would have to be improved if a driveway were to take place in the future. So the typical encroachment area we would want for future would be straight off the cul-de-sac at this point here. So it is a public hearing, so we have to hold the public hearing. At the staff level, we are recommending approving it as drafted. It would require Mr. Brolin to essentially realign his access, and we can walk through that after the public hearing if you want to as well. So I would recommend opening the public hearing and proceeding that way.
Sounds good. I will go ahead and open the public hearing.
For anyone listening virtually, you could go ahead and press *9 on your phone. Otherwise, under the reactions button, you can, or click reactions and then raise your hand. At this time, Mayor and Council, no one's raising their hand, and do not believe we have anyone in the audience who wants to speak on the matter.
Think we're good.
The applicant is on the call if there are questions for the applicant too.
Okay, sounds good. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to close the public hearing then.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So the applicant is on. Do we have any questions for the applicant? John, I know you were.
No, I make a motion to pass as recommended.
I'd like to discuss first.
Okay. Did you want?
So no second?
No.
I'll second
no,
it, and then we have discussion afterwards anyway, so.
That works.
Okay. So I've had some conversation over email with the applicant's neighbor. I support Mr. Galbraith being able to have the easement vacated to allow his shed not to conflict with the easement. I would rather not force his neighbor to incur costs to realign his driveway to ensure he maintains access to the road. So I think there was a reasonable compromise that Mr. Brolin proposed where the easement isn't entirely vacated. Maybe the southern portion of it could be retained to give him access without having to cut down some trees and improve the surface. So I think I floated that to you, Brad, and there was some concern from staff on that. So maybe you could elaborate on.
So, Mayor and Council, really if the council wants to go that way, it really would be who pays for that. Obviously, there's a survey work that would have to be done to, and then write the property description, notching out that portion essentially. So, in my mind, since that's requested by the neighbor to the east, that seems like something that should potentially be paid for by that. And that's, if that's the case, I probably would recommend tabling this item likely until the action in front of you would take place. So that'd be
He did seem willing in my correspondence with him to cover costs. So I think that might be worth having staff spend a little bit of time on the phone to confirm, because that could then make it into a win-win instead of a win-lose.
Should we ask the applicant is he on?
He is unmuted.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor Council. With the elevated camera, I really literally feel like a fly on the wall in this meeting. So, yeah, no, I spoke to Craig today on the phone for a length of time. It feels like he supports the right-of-way vacation, but yeah, his desire is to not cut down any trees, and I get that. I like the trees as much as anyone else. I'm fine with evaluating and cutting out the bottom or the southern portion. I would, with all the work that's been done so far, it feels more constructive to have me and Craig sort that out. I mean, I'm willing to, we're talking about probably 15 by 30 foot section that cuts through the right of way. I told him today that he'll always have access. I told him that if he wants to build, that I would deed that to him. As long as it complies with city code. I honestly don't think that he can with the existing or redrawn drainage and utility easements in place. But that would be subject to a survey. So I would ask the council to approve it as is and let us work this out. I mean, at best, he gets to keep the existing field path and build a driveway. At worst, he's got to cut down maybe 15 to 20 trees to go around it. So with the work that's been done so far, I would hate to have it stop at this point.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Brad, more Brad question. Would we allow a driveway, an angular driveway off a cul-de-sac like that today of the existing access point?
I mean, not typically angle through a right-of-way. You'd want it to be straight, at least till it got out of the right-of-way, typically. And then after that point, it wouldn't matter.
Where's it angled through the right of way?
So as it is today, this is right-of-way. The hatched line is right-of-way. So
Yep.
it's currently angling through a right-of-way. Now, that being said, there is not an approved access agreement between the city and the Brolin property, and that's really how this started last year at the staff level of drafting an access agreement that just was never finalized. So through that conversation, that's where staff had proposed to approve an access agreement was straight until the edge of the right-of-way and then go up at that point. So that was how staff recommended back then, and then it kind of stopped. I think Mr. Brolin didn't want to do that, and there was so much else going on, we didn't follow up on it. Then this application comes in and triggers the issue to come to a head. So back when we talked about having an access agreement, this is what we recommended, going straight in to the property from the cul-de-sac.
Is there a particular justification for that approach? Like, what is the benefit to the city to having it done that way?
I think streamlining through your right-of-way in one area is just a best practice, but I think that's ideal.
Brad, can I ask you a question? So, the easement's over private property currently, right? Right-of-way easement? That's not city property that we're,
It's currently city right-of-way.
it's city right-of-way, but when we vacate it, it goes, the right-of-way is gone and the property is basically freed up for the original landowner, right?
Correct.
So, do we have easements in place for the benefit of private property owners?
We have easements in place to benefit.
What I'm getting at here is,
I get what you're getting.
I'm opposed to having a carve-out on a vacated city easement that was originally put in place for city's use for future development, carving it out for a private parties own access. Do you see where I'm going?
Yes.
So I would be inclined to vacate the whole easement as is and let the parties deal with it as they go. Even if they don't come to some understanding, he still has the ability to access his property through the city agreement right off the end of the road. So he's not out anything, it just moves the city outside of any type of private easement
So-
issues.
So the easement, the land under, the city's easement is with the private property owner on the west there,
Correct.
through his property. So what we would be doing is taking and granting an easement through that private property owner's property to,
Effectively, if
Yeah.
we did not vacate the full easement
yeah,
and kept a portion of the easement, we'd be keeping an easement solely for the benefit of a private property owner.
Is the driveway unlawful the way that it is?
It doesn't have the proper access approvals that it should have for access right now. So it's more of a cow path than a driveway.
Yeah, I think,
So if he came in for a driveway permit, I mean, we would likely have him move the driveway to where we think it would make sense, straight from the cul-de-sac to the property in the location shown on the image here.
But in terms of when it was created, as best we know, and I realize records probably aren't awesome for this, was this done improperly when it was first created?
It looks
think
like
anything-
somebody just took a chainsaw and cut a
yeah,
path.
there's not gravel or anything.
Yeah, it's
just
grass.
I don't know whether there was staff here that gave verbal okays. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of handshake items took place many, many years ago around here, so I would not feel comfortable saying that it was done improperly at the time without knowing more.
Okay.
if there's a city easement across my neighbor's property, and I decide that I'm gonna get onto my property through the city easement on the neighbor's property, I don't really have, do I have the legal, can I legally access my property through, because that city easement is a city easement, it's not an easement, so it grants the city the right to go on private property, but it doesn't, as it sits right now, the city easement doesn't grant another private property owner the right to go through the original private properties.
Yeah, city
Land.
owned right away.
It's a city easement.
It doesn't allow anyone to use it because the city owns the right of way. You
But
still
that's
need
what's
an-
going on
you
right
still
now
need to
is
access, correct. which is
somebody's using a city easement to go onto their own private property.
Right away, because
It's not an easement though, right? So is there
it's right away.
an
City
important
right
difference
away,
there?
oh, okay. Does that matter? Because the city has a right of way at the end of my driveway, can somebody swing their driveway through the city easement in the front of my house? Like if they wanted it,
Not without city approval.
so this wouldn't happen, this is not, city never approved this.
There's not really anything to have approved, I feel like.
Yeah, that's where I don't know whether there was a staff approval, verbal back in the day. I have nothing to say. I'm just saying, so if this council wanted to maintain this, what the direction you essentially would be giving staff would be to work with the Brolands to, let me put this on to carve out this section at their expense, and then you would also be directing me to authorize an access agreement through that area for the Berlin property. So why else would we do it?
Mhm.
If we wouldn't approve a driveway through there in the future, what's the point of carving it off now, in my mind?
Well, the seconded motion right now eliminates that,
Right.
all that discussion. It just goes back to, they would have to have an access agreement from the city off the end of the road. And I feel that's probably the best thing we should be doing here.
Yeah, I would probably agree. And it sounds like the parties are talking and able to hopefully figure something out. It's not like there's a big conflict at this point.
But that wouldn't be a durable solution potentially, right? So if the applicant decides in a year he's going to sell and somebody else moves in, there's not a mechanism to make that a lasting agreement.
unless they decided themselves to enter into an agreement that was recorded with the property.
But we're also saying that we don't have that right to make that agreement for them. That's gonna be, that he has now he has a permanent right to go through.
So I would support this vacation to allow that shed not to be in conflict with current requirements for setbacks. But I don't want to have a negative impact on a neighbor because of something that a prior property owner did that the current property owner is trying to rectify. So, given the choice, I would say, let's give them a month to figure this out, and if they have a solution they can both live with, great. Let's go ahead and vacate it.
And then if not, you'd propose we continue with this action at that point?
I would look for a carve-out. I mean, this is only a problem if somebody decides to make a big deal about it down the road for that shed. As far as I'm seeing it, maybe that's not right.
I won't support it. I won't support a carve out for an easement to the benefit of a private landowner. I mean, we could have the city's asking for, we could have private landowners coming and ask for easements on other people's property for their benefit and ask going through the city. And I don't want to be part of that.
I see your point, but I think the analysis is incomplete there because we're not creating an easement. We're only repealing the part of the easement that causes a problem for a shed. So it's a legacy condition that we're allowing to maintain itself, not the creation of a new problem.
I didn't walk his driveway, but I drove to the end of the street. And to me, there's not much money out there in that driveway that he would be out if he had to realign that driveway. He still has to get an access agreement through the city.
But the alternative is going to cost him money. I mean, if he's got to cut down trees to follow a different path, that's either a lot of work or a few $1,000s.
I think either way, there's investment that they're gonna have to be making to it, whether it's along that line or not, it's not.
He would have to improve it.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to get involved, I don't want the city to be involved in private dealings of easements, so I made a motion and then I'd suggest we call for a vote.
Yeah, okay. So we do have a motion and a second, and I guess the last thing I would say is I would encourage the property owners to work to sort this out, and, but I understand where you're coming from with that, so we'll go ahead and vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Go on to 8C, which is a grading request for Amberley and Bellwether.
Mayor and Council, just a quick item in front of you here. I just have really one slide. We have received a request from Pulte Homes to allow site grading and trunk sewer installation in advance of final plat approval. The conditions here in Minnesota are rather unique when the construction season ends rather abruptly, and they'll be pushing towards the end of this season to get started. Right now, we're tentatively scheduled to look at their final plat at the October meetings. Although there's some significant items to get figured out, even a week or two at the end of a construction season makes a big deal to developers. So we at the staff level find it, we can support it contingent upon financial guarantee, watershed approvals, tree preservation plan, any other applicable agreements that we feel necessary, signature by the landowner who still owns the property, and really looking for direction from the council whether you're supportive of that. So the motion to allow that to happen, we direct staff to draft an agreement allowing that to take place, and then we would bring that back to you on a consent agenda to formally approve that once we draft those agreements. And I do see that Paul Hoyer from Pulte is on the call, and I'm happy to answer any questions too.
Any questions for Brad? Any questions for Paul?
No, as long as we draft an agreement that fully protects the city and the rest of the citizens,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Motion to approve request.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. I forgot to say aye myself. Aye.
Those are all in favor?
I believe so.
I was planning to abstain.
I botched that, I'm sorry.
So,
Did you vote?
3
Yeah,
0-1.
nay,
Abstain.
abstain,
Must be
okay.
deaf in this year, because I can't hear you half the time.
Wait, you said aye to the nay?
No. 3 ayes and abstain.
and abstain. yeah.
Okay.
No nays.
Okay.
I just stumbled through it. Okay. We'll go on to 9A, which is the improvement hearing for City Center Drive and the 79th Place Improvements Project. And we technically have a public comment opportunity.
And actually, it's a public hearing, so
Ah.
I'll walk through it here, and then we can open the public hearing on that, if that's all right.
Sounds good.
I will note that we do have, Mr. Varenkamp did request to speak the next item, if we can just do that at the next item, if that's okay.
Sure, works for me.
We don't mess that up. All right, so tonight we do have an improvement hearing for the City Center Drive and 79th Place project, improvements project. And that's the proposed city parkway just south of City Hall. So on the north side here, you have really the existing southerly entrance to City Hall. It would then bend southeasterly down to the southern portion of City Hall, which would then be a City Hall property, which would be a new 79th Place. And if you're familiar with the property, those two homes south of City Hall are really at this line here, so that's the extent of our property. And this would be in support of the future town center. It would go down to County Road 10 eventually, and support the soon-to-be coming in application for the St. Therese project as well. The feasibility study was reviewed at the July 8th meeting, so the next step is the improvement hearing. The proposed assessments include really 4 properties. The first 2 are really the large property just south of City Hall that wraps around the 2 residences. There's the big property and then the residence on that property, that's the top 2. And then there are the 2 individual residences along County Road 116 that the council, through the feasibility study, did recommend including them in this project. So really is the council action is to hold the improvement hearing and then provide staff direction on what assessments to include at this point. We are not asking you to approve the project. We really want the application from St. Therese come in. I will say that I have some discomfort with including the 2 residential properties south of City Hall, those 2 2-acre properties. Yes, we did prove there is defensible benefit via the appraiser's work, but once you factor in they're not going to have access and half of their property would be ate up by future linear park in the future, I have a little heartburn with including them with this project, but that's really up to the council. So we should hold the public hearing and then direct staff on that item or anything else you'd like.
Okay. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone in the audience could go ahead and speak. Anyone on the phone or a computer, if you press *9 if you're on a computer, you can raise your hand to speak. Otherwise, click the reactions button and click raise your hand if you're on a computer or tablet. At this point, Mayor and Council, no one's raising their hand. Like, we could wait just a moment.
Do we have many people online?
We currently have 7 people
Wow.
on.
Okay.
We had 19 at one
Well,
point.
if-
And one of them's me, and
if,
Kevin, and Natalie. So,
We have,
Basically have 2 who are not staff or
Gotcha.
related.
well, I think we're probably good on that. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the discussion on the 2 properties, whether or not to include them that staff was, or that Brad was discussing. What are your thoughts on that?
Is it a deferred assessment? Or do they get hit with the bill like immediately?
We could do deferred.
yeah, it would depend on how we do the resolution.
If they live in that house from here to the end of time, they won't have to pay it.
I think there is a limit on deferment.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's
There's
right.
a
We've run
30-year
into that
limit
before.
on
You can do
deferred.
it based on
20
the
years.
sale, can't you?
Yeah, you trigger it on either transfer of ownership or a term, typically.
Yes.
If there's a road on the backside of my property, I would not consider that. Well, it would depend, but in that location, I wouldn't consider that awesome of a benefit.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody were to purchase those two properties, let's say, so now you have 4 acres and do a small commercial development that accesses on 79th, that's.
Oh, it's
certain
4 acres?
well, the two properties together.
Oh, okay.
That certainly would be benefit. Now, that being said, our linear park would take half of that, so still you're left with, I mean, really the two properties probably don't function without being wrapped into something larger, other than current residential in my mind.
So is there a way to trigger it, I guess, on that happening?
You would want to do it at basically time of sale, and it should be factored into their purchase agreement. The other option is to, again, tell us to include this. We still have to hold an assessment hearing down the road, and you have another opportunity at that point for them to say or appeal the assessment at that point too. So you have more time on this. It's just whether, if you feel confidently one way or the other now, make the decision now, but there is another opportunity.
Were they notified about this hearing today?
Yes, no, the mailing went out 10 days before the hearing.
Okay.
I dropped it off at the post office myself.
So presumably, if there was a major concern, they would have voiced it by now.
Yes, I did not receive any written comments. The notice said you could do written comments, or you could attend virtually or in person.
Do we know if people are actually living in those properties, or?
Oh, yeah.
I would be fine with doing a deferred assessment at the time of sale. I mean, the amount of the assessment would be known, and they could just factor it into their sale price.
I agree with that.
That works for me.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're going to be, so that's the direction, in terms of actually ordering the improvement here, and we're just gonna hold off on that, so table it, or?
Nope, so no action. This is really checking the box that we held the improvement hearing.
Gotcha.
Because the direction is to continue, the feasibility study doesn't change. And we would just await an application to come in with St. Therese and potentially trigger the project later this year.
And we're all in agreement about that, about waiting on the St. Teresa application?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds good. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. 9B, dust control billing. That's what Dean wanted.
Mayor and Council, this is just regarding a previous conversation in June regarding whether or not to bill for dust control. We do have Mr. Dean Varenkamp who would wish to speak on the item, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Mayor and Council, thank you. Dean Varenkamp, 9310 Bechtold Road, Corcoran. I've been doing this for the last 14 years. Last meeting, or in June when it was conversed and talked about, and it has been talked about every year, is that dust control, while yes, it is beneficial to us that live up and down those roads, it was stated in the last meeting that it was also helping maintain our gravel roads in town. It's been kind of noted that way the last few conversations when I've had in front of the council and such. But I see it as, I come from Maple Grove 20 years. I lived on a gravel road in Maple Grove for 20 years. If you believe that we had gravel roads, we did. I paid for my 300 and some feet of frontage, personally. No money, because I needed it, because I had traffic going up and down my roads. I did not want the dust because I live close to the road. I live here, I'm 900 feet off the road. I don't need dust control. So I see it as I'm already paying how much in taxes. I see general maintenance for all the roads in town, whether they're plowed, dust control, those kind of things, to be part of our taxes. That's what I see. And I'm seeing I have to pay, the estimate this year is $81. And it's not benefiting me. I'm 900 feet off the road. The dust doesn't travel that far, even though we do have significant traffic up and down Bechtold and all of our gravel roads. I just see it as a general maintenance thing for our city to handle all of the traffic, whether it be neighborhood traffic, pass-through traffic, those kind of things. Again, $81 isn't much. In 14 years, I think it troubles up a little over $1,100 I've paid in an assessment for that, not a big deal, it's just, I'm already paying this much for taxes. Again, Public Works made the comment that it also helped us maintain our roads, held things together, prevented things from deteriorating more. And I know a lot of folks in town would love to have tarred roads, and then we wouldn't have this issue, but then there's that whole assessment side of things. So thank you for the time listening. I'm not opposed to it, but I don't need dust control. I live 900 feet off the road. I'm far enough away, I'm not gonna get dust. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. So, I guess picking up the conversation where we last left it was kind of to get your input as well. I think you were not there at the last meeting we
okay.
discussed it. I'm trying to remember exactly where we left
Dust
off.
control is a binding agent. Like if this was called, I'm just sort of playing devil's advocate a tiny bit, but if this was called road binding agent billing, it would have a different tenor, I think. Because not only do we not have dust flying around, but it also extends how long that road lasts. If you talk to Pat Meister about it, or people, we had somebody, and I won't pretend to be a scientist, but they went over the science of what it does, and it really binds that top layer. The reason why it controls dust is it binds
Because it's
the
holding
top
together.
layer. So like, it's a side benefit of saving thousands of dollars on the road being just going into the ditch. Basically, that's what would happen if we didn't have a binder on that top layer.
It absorbs the moisture in the soil. That's what binds it.
Yeah.
The chloride portion. As much as I hate dust control, I agree with you. I mean, I hate the idea of putting chloride on our roads, but, do we have enough reserves in our general fund to pay this 37,000 this year?
Well, within this year's budget, or within just reserves in general?
Just reserves in general to cover the cost this year, to not throw our budget way out.
Certainly. I mean, this year is really in flux. So I will tell you, we don't have a strong grasp on it right now. We are over budget in engineering, we're over budget in planning. We're
Legal.
over budget in legal. We're under budget in staffing. Because we've had some vacant positions. We're probably over revenue budget in land use applications that have come in. We won't get a sense of a strong budget picture for another month or so now. I will tell you, the bills need to go out tomorrow or not at all.
Yes, please. Just in order to assess
Yeah, that makes sense.
if we don't get payment.
Are we gonna charge people who live on asphalt striping fees for their part of the road?
Good question.
Straight.
Or snow plowing. We don't charge for snow plowing
Well,
outside
we
of the
don't
regular
charge
tax
them
bill
for
either.
snow plowing either.
I know.
But we charge for seal coating. We charge for
Not for
No.
sale putting. Overlays.
overlays.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I'll re-advance the argument that I made back in June, that it's part of the cost of having gravel roads. And just like we bear normal expenses for maintaining asphalt roads, I would like to see this as something that we just treat as part of an ongoing expense of maintaining the road network that benefits the whole city, rather than assessing the specific people who have parcels along gravel.
Would you say the same thing about asphalt, though?
Which part of asphalt?
I don't know, you can make what you just said, you could apply it to asphalt and overlay too, right?
Yeah, I would love to see us get to the point where we can afford to not have to do assessments for asphalt improvements. We're not there yet. I think we're there for gravel, given this relatively low dollar amount. But I've always believed that the road network is just part of what makes the city. And while it might benefit the people who have a property along the road, if that property was vacant, you would still want to have a road there for the other people and for the traffic that goes through, and it's just part of the cost of maintaining our infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely fine with rolling it into 2022.
That was
I
my
was just
thoughts.
curious about where we're sitting this year. I don't want to say, yeah, let's find a dandy and then find out we're 80 grand short at the end of the year.
Yeah.
You know, so.
That was kind of my thought. I think that's what I talked about a bit at the last time we discussed this was, I think that's a valid argument. I think I can be convinced on both the kind of maintenance and the, the other side of it, but I would be more comfortable including it in the 2022 budget and going as planned, and billing for this year, but with the intent to have that included next year. Or at least to try to figure it out as we're going through the whole budgeting process.
Yeah, we don't have any, do you have a comfort level, 37,000 gonna, we're gonna stand out with coffee cans on 116?
Just council members.
Okay.
I mean, we have, what, a $7 million budget, right? So, a $40,000 swing here or there is something that's within our realm. It was definitely budgeted revenue. We're also low on police fine revenue, I will say, certainly. But to me, it's policy. Fiscally, we can manage this. The 2 points I will make is certainly if you don't bill this year, you're committing to not billing next year, because to go back and forth on that would be really difficult for residents. When we no longer bill, it's gonna cause the staff level really some thought on what do we do for in the future, because there's cul-de-sacs that have purposely not wanted to get it for two reasons. One, they don't like it, or they don't want to pay for it. Now that it's free, are we going to have an influx of more people wanting it, and we're going to probably have to do either way, because it sounds like we're heading that way in 2022. We're going to have to start doing that anyway, but that'll change potentially how we do the program as well. So I'd say, to me, this is purely policy. We'll make it work fiscally.
Do you have any idea what that additional incremental cost would be if all those additional sections of road that didn't take it in the past came on?
No.
This is already applied for this year, right? So this will be
Correct.
going forward?
Yeah, it'd be going forward. No, answer's no. There's a lot that goes into it. We'd want to decide, whether we want to do a reduced application rate potentially for some areas. That's when you have less overall product. You still have more linear feet. I think it's an overall look at the program. We did bake in.
If you reduced, you would have to spend more on road maintenance, wouldn't you?
I don't. And this is why if this decision takes place, there's a lot that's going to the next.
Yeah,
And that's why I'd be
I'm
more
curious.
comfortable.
I'm not
It doesn't
making
change
an
this
argument.
year. Yeah, it doesn't change this year, however.
Yeah, this year's already been applied, so it doesn't create complications for 2021. And the 2022 change, if we decide to do that in the budget process, that would happen at that point anyway. So this decision has no impact on that.
Other than I would say if you're committing
Kinda-
next year to
yeah.
not bill next year.
Yeah,
I'm fine with leaving it how it is.
yeah, I guess I would, now that we talk about it more about the cost of additional roads going on, I'd like to get some more information, almost punt the decision till we have that information.
Can't punt it. Today is the day.
No, I'm
to-
saying,
decide
I'm
to do it
saying,
for this
I'm
year.
saying we
Different
would
year.
do as what we have done and punt the
2022.
decision to take it all on city.
We'll do it. We'll do it.
And just, I know I'm out of order.
No, not a problem.
Get him out of here.
Doing it this year again, obviously nobody cares. I'm just gonna keep coming back. This is the first time you guys have said, let's at least look at it to make it as part of our budget next year. That's acceptable in my mind, and obviously nobody else cares other than me. I see it as a maintenance kind of deal.
Yeah.
And,
Then talk.
To your point, people do care because we've had various people in over the years
Yeah,
coming in to
for
speak
sure.
on it, so
but I mean,
whether they're
in
here
the
tonight
past,
or
it's
not.
been, we're doing it, always gonna do it, everything, at least the council and mayor and staff are gonna look at what are the costs incurred. Your big concern related to how many more property or how much more lineal feet are gonna be added because we don't do every road. That's a whole analysis, and that's being responsible, and I respect that, so.
Appreciate the feedback.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. So are we, so do we,
Motion to bill as
we need a motion?
presented.
I think it must be good since there's a little dissent.
sounds good. I'll second that. Any further discussion?
I just want to point out that we seem to agree on the principle that this should be a network expense that's borne by the city generally, but we're choosing not to act on that consensus and instead present bills to residents for something that we would do anyway.
Yeah, I think the only thing caveat there is we want to get more information and know what the impact is going to be next year, because the budget that we looked in the work session shows, what, 40,000 or something like that increase that was estimated. I just want to make sure that that 40,000 number doesn't go to 100,000, you know what I mean? So,
I think we're all genuinely, I think we're all considering it for 2022, and that's what's been so far, at least in the initial draft included. So I think with looking at some of those numbers in more detail, we can figure that out. But, so do we have a motion? We had a motion in a second, right?
yep.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Abstain.
You already voted aye.
No, I don't.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, sorry. I thought I heard 3 ayes.
No.
There we go. New business, 10A, the NTIA Broadband Partnership Grant Application.
Council, we do have one brief last public comment opportunity if we want to allow that for anyone on new business, either use the raised hand function now,
Yes.
in person or virtually, use your raised hand function.
Yes, you can do so by pressing *9 or click reactions if you're on a computer. No one is currently raising.
All right. Then we'll go right into 10A.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. We do have an opportunity here to apply for the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA, Broadband Infrastructure Program. And I was actually informed about this with my government contact at Comcast, who I've worked with the whole time I've been here, actually. And there would be a co-application. City of Corcoran, cities or governments really have to be the application, along with Comcast, and they really have assisted in writing the application. But they did a study and found that there are 496 properties in Corcoran with inadequate broadband service, and there's roughly a $6.7 million project. Comcast, actually the number is more like 1.7 million that they're looking to put into and looking for a grant application of just under $6 million of federal funds for this project. There are no direct cost contributions required of Corcoran. We need letters of support. We're working on, the mayor actually is getting a letter of support from Congressman Phillips for the project as well. And really, there's likely some reporting requirements that would take something in the future, but it is an opportunity to essentially build out broadband service for the entire city of Corcoran. So we're really looking for a motion to authorize myself to complete that grant application. It is due August 17th, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Brett?
I was gonna ask, if we receive the grant application, the request, we're committing ourselves to doing it with Comcast.
Correct.
Does that mean that residents would be committed to using Comcast as a provider in the future?
No, unless they're the only game in town, then it kind of is. So to me, it's very similar when we were talking about the greenfield approach. When we're picking a vendor, it would be the exact same thing. So whoever would do the work. Now, our right-of-way is our right-of-way, and this would not give Comcast any exclusive right-of-way. So if other providers wanted to follow suit and do infrastructure improvements, they also could do those in our right-of-way, and then residents would have options essentially. But if there is only one provider in the ditch, that's the one you're gonna get.
So it wouldn't prevent another provider from
Yeah, it
building
would.
in.
Yeah, it would. It for sure would. It for sure would prevent. It's private industry saddling in with a public entity to get most favored company status in a town. I'm gonna vote no. I think it's an abuse of public trust in a profound way, but I'm not gonna spend time on it, and I think it's bad, but.
Okay.
I know I'm gonna lose this vote. I think it's awful.
To your point on that, I don't know enough about public, or, utilities to definitely say that that would be the case, or not be the case. And the reason I say that is because when we agreed to put the tower on 50 and 19, remember that? That tower was coming in by a provider that put a lease on that, but they actually sell tower space to other cell providers. So,
But it was an approval of not a grant, it was
no,
an
it's approval
of
of
a project.
a project,
But
right?
we're involved in this
But
one.
what I'm getting at is, I don't know if when Comcast comes in and plows cable, they don't plow cable for somebody else at the same time, at a fee.
Well,
You know what I mean?
I think they'd be fools if they did that, but Comcast, I don't know, I don't wanna spend, it's 10:23.
Yeah, I know.
This is the kind of stuff I hate about government saddling up with a private industry provider. I'm a free markets guy, this is anti-free market, it bugs me, but I know you know how I feel about it, so
That's it. Fair
We don't
fair
need-
enough.
bottomless 30-minute rant.
No, I mean, you're more
2
than.
minutes.
More than welcome.
Thank you for
and
condensing.
Yes.
You have the ability to show that I respect, but definitely disagree with your opinion. So,
I move to approve.
okay, I'll second that. Any further discussion?
I would just say I understand your point, but
You're so desperate for
No,
fast internet, you'll
no,
prostitute our town for it?
people don't have a choice now, but they have a choice of providers now, right? Whether it's just not Comcast, they
Right.
still have a choice with going who they currently have or going with Comcast.
This is America.
And there will probably be
It starts at the
competitors in
local
5G, and there'll be competitors in Starlink, and other things will come along that will prevent this from becoming a monopoly for high speed. But I think it's definitely a step in the right direction for now, for those residents who are struggling with trying to
Absolutely.
school or work from home on 3 megabit internet.
Yeah, I get it.
It's a great opportunity, I believe. Okay.
Private,
I'll
public
go ahead.
partnership.
Call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Thank you. 10B, request for funds from Cross.
Mayor and Council, in your packet is a request from Cross for funds in the amount of $84,000. There's a letter describing why and looking for direction to staff on what to do. These would be requested funds for the American Recovery Plan Act allocations the city has received, not general.
Gotcha. So any thoughts on this request for the, do
Motion to approve.
we have a second? No second. That'll die for lack of a second. So the request was for the $84,000 from the CARES, or not CARES, the rescue plan funds over the next 3 years, I believe, was their request. I think it's very likely a good cause and something we can look at. I would be more comfortable kind of sorting out where exactly we'll be spending those funds and what we have available, and then maybe looking into some that we could give to, Cross or other organizations like this. But that's just kind of my initial thought on it.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the organization to know where they get their other funding from, what type of organization they are. I understand they're trying to do good in the community, but there's not enough information here or someone to speak on it, so I'd make a motion to decline the request.
Do we even need, do we?
Yeah,
want a
a
motion?
motion to, not approving or voting on a motion to approve.
Okay, we don't need it, we got it then. It failed for a second, so unless somebody's gonna hurry.
That works.
Yes.
Staff got what they need from that? Or do you want a motion?
No, I want to make sure I have adequate direction. So right now.
Like to hold off
There's
until?
No direction.
so-
Hold off until maybe we have a better picture of that and then we can reassess.
that comfortable with the rest of the council?
I thought, I saw something in the League of Minnesota Cities training for new city councilors like me, that we're not allowed to give charitable contributions. How does this fit with that? How did Maple Grove
Can you
do it?
describe that more?
Yeah, I think there are some allowances with the funding from,
Rescue plan.
ARPA, but
Yeah.
also there are some carve-outs for things like charitable gambling funds. So we are allowed to give to 501c3s with our charitable gambling funds. That would be another option that we could utilize because we have not earmarked those funds. But you have to, there's very specific rules within the charitable gambling.
He's probably thinking of tax revenue, right? We
Yes,
can't.
in general, we can't, the only, like I said, the charitable gambling funds are, and then I believe the ARPA carve-outs
Yeah.
are the only one,
Okay.
kind of avenues to do that, generally, no.
The specific funding through the government allowed that type of use for the ARPA funds specifically, but you're
Yeah.
correct.
I guess they just made the course before that was a thing, so
Okay.
that's probably why.
So I agree with John's sentiment. I think that,
Wait, I made a motion, it doesn't mean I would have voted yes. I felt like we had enough information.
I will
to
agree
make
with
my
the
point.
sentiment that John communicated in his proposal that no one seconded. The need is real in the community. I personally do support Cross, and we support it through our church as well. They did say that Maple Grove gave them $500,000, but Maple Grove is a very different city at a very different point in its progression. We still have 25-plus miles of unpaved roads. We've got 500 homes with no broadband. We have limited fire protection, no city water of our own. Most of our infrastructure and our processes are from the 70s. So because we're struggling to provide basic services, I feel like it's a better use of those ARPA funds to use them for things that we don't have, that we know that we need to support our primary mission, which is providing basic services to the city.
I think that it would have set a precedence that we shouldn't have.
That too. Yeah, so if we were to accept this, we would probably see others feeling like they should apply as well. And I feel like there's better uses for Corcoran's.
It's a similar conversation as the other one.
Okay.
So if the council's comfortable, I'll respond to the executive director that we declined at this time. We're still aware of it, and if at the end of our funds, we're aware of the request.
I feel really good about Cross too. Cross is a good organization.
Seems very good. Okay. 10C, open book meeting.
Is this mine?
Yes.
So, this was brought up a long time ago, but for a long time, the city was able to, if somebody disputed their property value, could come to the city council and have a conversation around that. And they changed the policy that you would go to the assessor directly and ask them to change the assessed value with evidence and those, and a sort of a quasi-evidentiary hearing. But that the value of your home dictated your tax bill to the city and to Hennepin County, et cetera. And we, right now, Hennepin County assesses the value, and they're also a tax collector. So they, well, one, they're a government entity, but two, it's like if you get a fine in the NFL and you can
Appeal to the
appeal to the
commissioner.
NFL.
Yeah.
So like, if Hennepin County misassesses your house, you get to appeal to the people who assessed your house. And it's a process that is missing a step. So, we as a city council, can change the value of somebody's home. It's like a minuscule, so long as it doesn't impact 1% of our taxable value of property. So we have some flexibility and latitude in changing the assessed value of the property. This came up because I think I was in a, actually Manoj was gonna speak on this topic. But it came up because the Lions Park is assessed. The Lions Park has so little revenue, and all of it, they donate it back to the city. but it has an assessed value and a taxed value that's way higher than the value of its existing occupant and user.
Gotcha.
This would not give them this would not give them anything, but we identified a need that they don't have someone they can go to now that we use the county for property assessment. They don't have an appeals process for that. So what this does is it allows us as city council or us to designate a board or body that can at least hear someone out if they disagree with the assessed value that is not the assessor themselves. And we can do that. And I think we should, what are you asking for? Is it to look into it or to some direction on that?
I'm recommending we do nothing and stay the course, to be clear. But I believe you wanted to bring it up and change course. I think this is where.
Yeah, I think we can't have the NFL commissioner decide whether the NFL commissioner is right about levying fines. There's no intermediary between the assessor and the people receiving the taxes, and I would like to change that.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Would this option mean that we would no longer use the county in this purpose at all? And it would have to go to council or a board? Or could you have two choices?
I think do you know the answer?
Well, I think if my recollection is right, what it basically does is from what I remember in watching the process in the past, is basically people would come up here and stand and say, I'm overtaxed in front of the council. The council would say, go talk to the assessor and he'll come back with something to us and we'll judge on it. That's what it's putting into play. So we have to listen to every individual claim that comes before us and make a decision. So somebody could come in and say, well, my value's gone up X%. I haven't painted my house in 5 years.
So you have that right now. You already have that right.
It doesn't come before the council.
Yes, it just goes before Hennepin County, who is the body that's assessing your house in the first place,
If I may.
right?
Absolutely.
Talk how it practically functions from the staff level, seeing it happen. So, Councilmember Schultz is right. So we'd have the local Board of Appeals and Equalization hearing right before the meeting or during the meeting? I forget.
Yes, but we'd have to hold a separate meeting.
Separate
Yeah.
meeting. So right before a regular scheduled meeting, we'd hold that. And person would come up, Judy would come up and yell at the council and say, my evaluation is way too high. This has to change. But as you read the packet, you do have to have at least one member who's attended training within 3 years to be educated on what they're talking about. But how it would practically work, they would say, I understand what you're saying. Go meet with the county assessor, or the assessor, which is Ralph Erickson at the time, a different company, and see what they come back. So they'd hold those meetings, and then the assessor would bring back to us any recommended changes that he would have made after meeting with those individuals, and then the council approved whatever the assessor said. Practically, that's similar to what happens now. Yes, we have a county assessor, Jim Atchison, but it's Mel Potter at the staff level who's meeting with.
Hey, Brad, can I make a request? Can we just pull this item? Can we pull the item?
Want to table it?
Yeah.
I'd like direction for this next year, if we're gonna make changes.
If it's my suggestion and I pull it, can I pull it?
I think we've opened the agenda item, but I'm fine.
I think you can table it, and if we don't take it up in time for the change to happen, it would just stay the course, I would think.
Yeah, this is a project Manoj and I were gonna work on together, and
Gotcha.
The only thing I would add, just to finish a thought, and I was getting long, so I apologize there. If we go back to that, I really would want all 5 members of the council to do that training and really understand valuation so they actually can be helpful versus the rubber stamp approach that we kind of used in the past, just because assessing is really complex.
I should have talked to you before this, because we put it, Manoj and I discussed this topic, I don't know, in February, and then we asked to have a conversation around it, and then I found it on I totally forgot about it. Manoj and I never had a discussion. The concept is still true, but I'm not gonna advocate for it. I'm not gonna, I want it off the table because I haven't done my research enough to put together a salient argument as to why. And if it's my baby and I can't do it, there's no reason for anyone else to engage anymore about it.
Fair enough, and I think if there wasn't a motion needed, you just needed direction on that, right?
Yeah, correct.
So, yeah, let's just,
Move to table.
I don't even think we need to do that. We can just continue as is, and if John
Yeah.
wants to bring it up at a future date, we can do that.
Right.
Sounds good.
Okay. And 10E, work sessions schedule.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Brad, but we didn't.
Please
meet-
do.
Okay.
10:30, it's all right.
Just briefly, so we had the work session scheduled for September 23rd to discuss, September 9th, I'm sorry, discuss fire service planning. Councilman Bottom was unable to attend that one, who's been really involved with the planning, so the request is to move that item to September 23rd. As discussed at the work session earlier today, about 5 hours ago, we talked about the potential for using September 9th for continuing the budget or not. So we're looking for direction from the council to move the work session for fire service to September 23rd, and whether or not you want to have a work session on the 9th of September.
Okay. Does that work for everyone? I know, John, you said you'd rather be at the fire one, which I agree with. I think you need to be part of that.
I would prefer to be on that, but it's up to you guys.
I think, that works for me, and I think we've briefly discussed that with some of the chiefs and tentatively have that date in their minds, so that works for me, and then we want to add the one on the 9th for the budget, part 2.
Yeah, if we need it.
Yeah, we can always cancel it, I guess, if we don't.
In
need
what
it.
circumstance would we not need it,
Uh,
based on our earlier
We
conversation?
would almost certainly need it, but it's an option if things just magically
need
work
3
out.
of you at least to attend, so we can actually hold.
Okay.
Yeah, not a
Be
problem.
here, so.
Sounds good. Okay,
We'll call those.
then that is it. Do we want to go over city council schedule?
Just a reminder, we do have a work session again before the next meeting. That's developer roundtable. Kendra's worked really, really hard and found 2 essentially willing to meet with us. One is Robert Thomas, which was one Councilman Nichols recommended, and the other is actually the developer just next to Cook Lake in the Maple Grove side. I'm blanking on their company. Stephanie is her name, actually. It's Steph's daughter. Other side there.
I know exactly who you're talking about, and I'm blanking on
So we're
it.
still waiting to find a third, but we will at least have 2 to have a conversation.
I'm excited to have some medium-sized people to talk to.
Exactly.
Can I apologize for my hyperbole about the Comcast thing? I think I went over the top a little bit.
No need to.
I'm gonna anyways.
Sounds good. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Woo! Marathon.